let's get into the giant mailbag.
What crazy thing did City do this week?
It's time for Mattress Running the Numbers. Ready for the main event?
The main event.
Frequent Miler on the air starts now. Today's main event, packing tips for worldwide travel.
That's right. Tips for your trips, folks.
This was the third take that we're not actually publishing all the other takes, but I had a lot of trouble saying packing tips instead of packing trips.
Right.
And so I think I finally said it, but it was kind of awkward the way it came out.
Packing tips for your international trips. You know, you could have made it a little rap, Greg. We could have the Greg the Frequent Miler rap there.
So we are recording this a week ago, a little over a week ago. We are currently on our 3 cards, 3 continents, worldwide extravaganza challenge trips.
Assuming that Craig didn't test positive for COVID anyway, we are.
That's right.
And if you don't know about that, then you should go back and listen to last week's show.
If you've been following us on Instagram or the blog, you know what's been up with us, but we don't. Because we are coming to you from the past, and we had to record this in advance because we didn't know when we would be able to get together at the same time and have internet and all that kind of stuff during the trip. And so, you know, for all I know, Steven's on the moon right now. Nick is in Antarctica somewhere. And I don't know. I'm on a rowboat somewhere. I don't know.
We're going to find out. You're going to find out. Hopefully, you know, because you've been following us on Instagram, because that's the best place to follow along for the trip. If you haven't done it yet, it's not too late because we're about midway through the trip. So there's still like almost another week to go of travel for all of us, I think, at this point. So you want to go to Instagram, find Frequent Miler, follow our stories, because that's really going to be the best way to see what's happening. Of course, if you've been reading the blog, then you've read about some of the things we've done, but I think it's a lot more fun to follow along with the story. So you want to make sure you check that out. And of course, because we're coming to you from the past, I still have laryngitis. Hopefully I don't really. Hopefully when you see me on our Instagram story, I sound like a normal human being, but this week I'm stuck sounding a little bit like this still. And hopefully by next week, or by the time you get to our Instagram story, then things will have improved significantly.
Yeah. All right, Nick, what's your guess of what continent I'm in right now, where now would be Saturday when the show drops?
I think so. You know, I feel like you have to be flying to Asia first, but then you were talking on last week's show about trying to stay like, you know, farther north so that you didn't have to go as much distance. So I'm really kind of confused as to where you'll be that's far enough north, that's in Asia, that's open. But I am going to guess you're going to be in Asia, and I'm going to even get more specific and say, I think you're probably in South Korea right now.
Okay. All right. That's pretty north in Asia. That would make sense. So I'm going to guess, let's see. I believe that you're going extraordinary distances. I think maybe you are going east from when you take off in New York. So you're probably going to start off maybe in Europe and then head. I'm guessing you're not going to Africa, but I don't know about that. But let's say you're going to go spend some time in Europe, but by now you should be further past that initial place. So I'm going to guess you are somewhere in Asia, probably somewhere in the Philippines, I'll say.
Okay. All right. There's a guess for Saturday at when this publishes, right? September 15th. So you'll have to check our Instagram story and see where we actually are. I realized I should have, because I was thinking you're leaving a few days after me. So I was thinking you'd still be in Asia. Maybe I should have given you credit for getting as far as India. So I just hedged there with 2 guesses. But anyway, we'll see. You got to find out. See, that's how little we know. I have no idea for sure where Greg is going or when. He doesn't know where I'm going or when or what. So check out the Instagram story so that you will know where we are.
We probably have a good idea of where we ourselves are,
unless
something has derailed our trip, which we don't know. But
Right.
The listeners know. Uh,
You
so
will know
you
if
got
you've
an
been
edge over
following
us.
Instagram. Yeah, you have an edge. So you can
Yeah.
see if we're even close, if we might, because you may not know where we are yet, like today when this publishes, because maybe we haven't even announced that yet, but you may have a guess as to where we could be heading. So we'll see.
Right, right. All right, let's get into our main event. We are skipping all the usual segments because we just don't have time actually. As we said, we're recording this before we're leaving for our trips. Nick is like running off to the airport. He's practically out the door as we're recording.
Crunch
It
time.
is total
Yes.
crunch down time. So we're doing a short show, and today's show is packing tips for worldwide travel. We've both traveled around the world, or even domestically, a lot compared to most people, I'd say. And I think over time we've developed different packing habits, and some of them have stuck because they've proven to be really, really useful, and some are new that we've adopted based on recommendations from others or what have you. And so we're going to talk about some of our favorite packing tips that make actually worldwide travel easier.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the more you do it, the better you get. And so, getting some practice in is really helpful. I actually I read a story I saw on like Yahoo a couple of months ago, and it was like, 8 things you need and 3 things you don't, or like I just took an international trip. Here's 8 things you need and 3 things you don't, or something like that. And I read the article, and the author, it was her first time traveling internationally, and I thought, I mean, okay, but like she's basing this on one flight on one trip. I
Yeah,
don't know as though that advice is necessarily broadly applicable or won't
right.
change as she takes a few more trips. So I
Sure.
definitely think that a little bit of experience helps in that regard. Now, as somebody who's experienced traveling with 2 kids, my first tip for packing is don't have kids or don't bring them on your trip because you end up bringing a lot more stuff when you have to
Yeah,
travel with kids. So that's tip number 1 is, don't travel with the kids. Well, I love traveling with my kids. And so, I'm being a little bit facetious, but yeah, I definitely had an easier time packing when it was just my wife and I.
for sure. No doubt at all. And I've had the kid, and he's now grown, and so I'm back to
Now he's got to
the
pack himself.
easier. Exactly, the easier adult only travel, and it makes a difference. And if you have any quick tips for packing for kids, I'm sure people would appreciate that. But let's get to that sort of at the end if you do, and
Yeah.
and let's jump into the ones that are relevant to everybody. One thing that kind of changed my travel life in a very positive way is when I started carrying a travel wallet in my travel backpack. And you might wonder, what does that mean, a travel wallet? And because I'm not talking about a wallet that I wear, like that I carry in my pants when I'm traveling. I'm talking about a place to keep all of the cards, identifications, and vaccine cards and things like that that are only really relevant when you travel. And I just keep them all in that one place in a wallet that is sort of hidden in my backpack. And it includes my passport, includes my vaccination cards. It includes my hotel gift cards. Like, so, I have some miscellaneous gift cards that can only be used when I happen to be at a Marriott or a Fairfield or, Fairmont or what have you. And it's the worst feeling when you show up at one of those and you realize, oh, I left that thing at home because, well, who would carry that in the regular day-to-day wallet all the time? I wouldn't, but I would carry it in my travel wallet. Other things in there, there's some credit cards that are only useful. Again, like there are hotel credit cards, for example, that are only very rewarding when you're using them at the hotel. Like, the old IHG card before it revamped, it earned 10x at IHG hotels, but only like 1x everywhere else. Now it earns 3x, so it's not too bad. But 10x is great. So having that card when you're actually at an IHG is a great thing. So have that in your travel wallet. That's an example. Also, any cards that get you into lounges, like an Amex Platinum card, a Capital One Venture X, or your Priority Pass card, are all good things to have in there.
I think on this note, and I don't mean to cut you off. So if you
No,
had
that's
something,
fine.
okay. I think this is part of the argument for getting a backpack that you love, or a bag that you love that you're going to bring everywhere. Because, in my life before I bought, we talked not that long ago, I don't know, a few weeks ago, about how we both
Yeah.
have these Toomey backpacks that we really like. And I bought mine used on Craigslist for like $100. So I didn't even spend the large amounts I know they're quite expensive, full price if you don't get a good deal on them, but I didn't pay that much, more than I normally would for a backpack, of course. But before I did that, I never knew which bag I was going to bring on a trip, right? Because I had, a couple of backpacks, a couple of carry-on bags, and there wasn't one that was like always mine and always going with me. But once I bought a backpack that I was really happy with, this became much easier, because now that stuff, exactly like Greg says, there is a specific pocket in the backpack where that stuff
Right.
always is. And so there's never a situation where I'm like, oh, I'm taking an international trip. Oh my goodness, where's my passport? Because my passport is always in that pocket, in that bag, and it doesn't take up a lot of room. And in this particular backpack, there's a pocket that I find really useful for that, because it's hidden away, and so it doesn't get in my way at all. I can just have it in there until I need it. I can still carry the backpack on other days if I want to, without worrying about losing anything out of it, because it's tucked away, zippered away in a pocket that I'm not going to touch otherwise. And so I think it's helpful if you have that, because otherwise I would misplace the wallet probably. Like if I just had the
Yeah.
wallet somewhere at home, I wouldn't know where it is. But the fact that that's in a specific spot in the bag I take with me every time, I think is part of an argument for getting a good quality bag of some sort that you're going to feel that way about, because it does help keep things more organized.
Absolutely, 100%. That's another like key packing tip that I think is absolutely essential, is having your go everywhere backpack. And I mean, yeah, it could be like a shoulder bag or something,
Right,
but
right,
I
right.
just think backpacks are way better, because then your arms are free to carry things, and pick up your phone and do the boarding pass, and all that kind of stuff that you got to do. Um, the backpack uh, needs to have, as Nick said, it should have lots of pockets, ideally zippered pockets, so that things don't fall out when the backpack is turned upside down, as it will be when you put it in the overhead bin and then you close the bin and everything flops over. Um, and it needs to be, of course, like rugged enough that it's not going to rip. Um, but there's also some like great nice to have features that I have in my backpack. Like, it's self-standing. Like, you put it down, it doesn't flop over. And I don't know, it's hard to explain why that's so useful, but I just find that incredibly useful.
It is, because you want to get something out of it, and it's there standing next to you, instead of having to like, oh, I
Yeah,
gotta lift it up, I gotta like lean it so that I can reach inside and get what I need. Instead, it's just sitting next to you. So
it's
I
just
like
there.
that too, and that's something that hadn't even dawned on me until you mentioned it, and I was like, oh yeah, that is why this is so convenient. It's never flopping. It's right next to
Right.
me now, and it's standing up. I could reach into it easily to get something. I don't need two hands. I can do it with one.
Right, right. And so, just like keeping a travel wallet in that backpack is, to me, an essential thing to do. There's other things that you should keep, like, in my mind, always stocked in that backpack. That's your go everywhere bag. Make sure you have a water bottle. And it should be one that, again, doesn't leak if it's turned upside down, because this thing will get turned upside down.
Preferably
Um,
one that is frequent miler branded. That would be, you
Very
can pick that
important.
up at Zazzle.com.
That's right. That's right.
But on the water bottle front, you mentioned that, and you said something that closes well so that it doesn't, excuse me, spill on everything. But I've come up with a different solution that I use for the water bottle. And that is that I get a carabiner. I get a couple of these, like, if you're watching on YouTube, if I put it in front of my face, you'll see this little carabiner here, and I just hang the water bottle off of the carabiner. Then I don't have to actually put it in the bag, so there's less of a chance of it getting anything wet. It also frees up more space in the bag. So I have these little carabiners on both sides of my backpack, and I got a black one that matches. I actually have a silver one, I think, on the other side, because I was too lazy to hook up the other black one. But they come in handy for hanging both, of course, the water bottles, but also sometimes other things. My kids' cups I've hung on there, and even shoes, if it's got like a very thin strap, I've put on there. So that can be something that, enables you to carry some things that either you don't want to put in the bag, or if you need a little extra space. Shopping bags, even, I've hooked on there. Like
Yeah, no, that's a great tip. I use one for things like a little hand sanitizer that hangs from that clip, and so it's just handy because it's just right there when you need it. But I also keep in that backpack at all times a pair of sunglasses, a rain jacket or rain poncho that folds up and really tiny. All of my phone electronics. So like, for example, I don't keep a charger at home and then pack it. I have a separate charger that goes with me everywhere, because if I didn't, I would half the time forget it. And that's just not a good idea, obviously. And so that includes having like extra cables for anything you need to charge. And also other electronics, like if you listen to music, and so keep earbuds in that backpack. I keep snacks, so granola bars, for example, always ready, because you just never know when you're going to be really hungry and not have food available, and at least one pen. So sometimes, even though in this modern age I very rarely write anything, every now and then you do need that pen, and just having a small pen in the backpack is really handy.
Yeah, and you mentioned a small pen. I took mine right out of a Delta amenity kit, and so it's like, I was going to try and grab it here, but
yeah. That's what I carry too. Delta has these tiny little pens that are in
right?
their many kits. So I love those for a travel backpack. It's great option. So
yeah, very good.
What
I
else?
think those are so there was something else that came to mind when you were talking about the travel backpack a second ago. And the pockets, the food, the earbuds. Oh man, there was something else I was going to say about that.
Well,
I lost my train of thought.
How about the single travel charger for all your devices?
That's what it was. So you mentioned the travel charger that you keep in there. And so for this specific trip, if you listened to last week's show, you heard me talk about how I bought a new computer. And for me, one of the requirements for the new computer is it had to be able to charge via USB-C. And the reason for that is I didn't want to have to carry a separate power adapter for the laptop. I wanted to be able to carry one power adapter that could charge both my phone and my laptop. And so, hold on. Watching on YouTube. Yeah, if you're watching on YouTube, then you'll see this, because I'd actually have my phone plugged in here. So I have one of these pretty standard chargers. I got it on Amazon. It's got 3 USB-C inputs and one regular USB-A.
Yeah,
and
I'll describe for people who are used to what the iPad charger, the wall component.
Yes.
It looks exactly that size, what Nick's holding, except it has 3 openings for USB ports. Or is it 4?
Yeah. Well, 4 altogether, 3 USB.
4 altogether openings for USB, instead of the one that the traditional like iPad plug has.
And just like the iPad plug, the part that plugs into the wall, the actual prongs, fold up, right? And so that's nice because it's easier for packing, but it's also nice because this particular one comes with a couple of attachments. Now, I'm not usually a fan of attachments. In this case, I am, and I'll explain why. It has a couple of international attachments that just slide onto it. So if I'm visiting someplace with one of the UK style plugs, it just slides right on there, or the European style plug, it slides right on there. And one of the things I like about this particular one is the way that these are designed, because many of the European outlets, whereas ours are like often one on top of the other, theirs are often one next to the other, and so this won't cover any other outlets the way that it's designed. So it's a kind of a smart,
it's actually very
attachment.
useful. Yeah.
I thought. And then the other reason I liked that is because I've normally carried an international travel adapter, like the ones that I'm sure many of you have, that you can plug into, and then you have the different prongs that'll come out to fit in different outlets. Well, I've always brought that, but the problem I had on my last trip was that my the charging brick that I had, like my iPad like charging brick that I plug things into, is pretty heavy. And so there were times when I would plug into an outlet and this would be falling out of my adapter. And
Right.
so being able to eliminate the adapter is kind of nice. I can plug right into the international outlets with this. And the, of course, advantage now is that everything I'm carrying with me can be charged via USB. My computer, my
Yeah.
phone, my
Yeah.
earbuds, all of it, my selfie stick that's got a Bluetooth thing and a light on it. All of those things can be charged with just this one single adapter. So I don't need the international adapter because I don't have to plug anything else in.
Right. That's sweet. I need to get one of those for myself because I do have an international adapter that I like a lot. It has 4 USB prongs, and it also has a surge protector built in. Um, and so I can use it for everything, but it does have that problem you mentioned of it's kind of heavy, and I put it in the wall, it starts like kind of drooping down, and so it doesn't maintain a connection often. And when that happens, like in hotel rooms, I'm often stacking things like tissue boxes or whatever underneath it to keep it upright so that it maintains the charge. And having one light enough to not have to worry about that would be a big win, not to mention saving space in
So
the backpack.
the charger itself in this one is not particularly light, but because of the way that these I don't know, it clips on in kind of a firm way, that I think it's less likely to have that problem, and certainly less likely than if I have this heavy adapter plugged into another adapter, man, because then you're just adding extra weight,
Gotcha.
dragging it
Yes.
down. So it's one
Right.
less thing. The other reason I bought this specific one is because it'll put out 100 watts max if you only plug in one thing at a time. And if you plug in 2, then it will put out 100 or 65 on one and 30 on the other. And so that's enough, the 65 on one and 30 on the other, that it will charge my laptop at regular full speed and also quick charge my phone. So I thought that that was particularly useful. It puts out enough power that I can still get things charged relatively quickly.
That's super useful. I love that everything is starting to standardize on USB-C, so that you can do that kind of thing. I mean, not you could do that with any USB plugs, but this way you also don't have to take lots of different cables with you.
Exactly.
For all the different devices. For me as an iPhone guy, I still need my iPhone charging cable. It still will plug into one of those, but I still need that separate cable. And I still carry an old Kindle that's the old USB micro or mini or something.
Mini or something. Yeah.
So I carry a number of different cords, but I'm looking forward to the day when everything will be USB-C. We'll see.
Yeah, very good. Well, I see that's why part of the reason I'm an Android guy. Very easy, all the same cables for everything. So, that's one of the things I like about this, is that everything is interchangeable in this setup in terms of my cords, my adapters. And I always bring a battery pack too. I bring a larger battery pack than most people do. Mine's kind of big and heavy and clunky, and so it may not be the one that you want. I carry it because I can charge it once, and I know it'll charge my phone like probably 4 times before I need to charge it again. And this one also does power delivery, so it will put out enough power to 65 watts in order to charge the laptop also. So I carry that, but that's a bit of overkill probably compared to what most people want to carry.
All right, very good. So, all right, so we've got all our electronics in our backpack, the essential backpack, the travel wallets in there, some sort of universal travel chargers in there. Outside of the backpack, we also pack usually a suitcase of some type. And one of the things that I like to always carry with me are quick dry clothes. So, I have t-shirts and boxers, for example, that dry very, very quickly. And the nice thing about that is I can pack, half the number of t-shirts and underwear that I normally do. And in a hotel room or wherever I am, it's very easy to wash them out in the sink. I just use the shampoo that's in the room as soap and wash it. hang it up on a, usually there's a hanger if you're in a hotel room. I literally put it on a hanger and just hang it somewhere. And it inevitably is completely dry the next day. And that's something I started doing because of the 40K to far away trip in 2019, where I literally had all of my clothes that I was taking with me stuffed into my little tiny backpack. But I started doing this thing with these quick dry clothes for all my trips because it's great, to cut down on how much you have to bring.
Yeah, it is. And, and on that same note, I am testing out something that I was curious about because I wanted some quick dry stuff also. And so, doing my research for this coming trip, because the trip that we're on right now, I guess, as this is published, I wanted to bring as little as possible because I wanted to get everything into a backpack for this trip, which I know is not the goal for most people, but it was a goal for me. And so, in doing some research, I found lots of people, lots of travelers swear by merino wool, being a fabric that does not pick up odor, dries relatively quickly. And so, this one particular company offers a 100-day challenge where you wear the same shirt for 100 days in a row. You can wash it, and they give you a free shirt. So I said, you know what? Let me try that out. I'm curious. And so, if you've noticed that I've been wearing the same shirt, that's why, because I was trying this out to see if it would work, and I've tried it at home, and it seems kind of gross and disgusting to me to wear the same shirt if you don't wash it day after day. However, I have been impressed because I have gone in testing 5 days in a row. Actually, I think I went 6 days in a row without washing it to see, how bad does this thing stink, like, and how
Yeah,
awful does it feel? And I'm very impressed to say that it doesn't, even after 6 days, it didn't smell bad. It didn't feel bad. I just felt a little
that's
gross
crazy.
myself. So I finally washed it
Just at the
because
idea of it, you
yeah, just
felt
the
gross,
idea
right?
that I'd been in the same
Yeah,
shirt for 6 days. But otherwise, I don't think that you would have known that the shirt had been worn for 6 days. Maybe it picked up a little bit of my deodorant smell, but beyond that, it just didn't smell bad. Nobody seemed to notice that I was wearing the same shirt every day. It does show sweat a lot easier than I would like. However, I posted a picture actually when I was testing this out from a playground after running around after my kids, and I was all sweaty. And one of our readers on Instagram wrote a message and said, but it'll be dry in an hour. And wouldn't you know it, we sat down and ate dinner at a restaurant, and certainly in less than an hour, it was totally dry. So,
yeah.
so I'm bringing just a couple of shirts on this trip, a couple of merino wool shirts. I am bringing a couple of other shirts also just in case, but I'm feeling pretty good about that.
That's a great tip, and so I'm looking forward to seeing how that goes long term for you. But yeah, it's not something I've invested in personally yet. Um, Another thing that I keep, and I think you've talked about too, is I have like a puffy jacket that collapses into itself in its own little pocket that's built in to a little tiny package. And so, if I'm going somewhere where it might be cold sometimes, but it's not cold all the time, I'd love to just throw that into my suitcase because it takes up hardly any room at all.
Yeah, and I'm bringing one of those on this trip also because it's puffy, but it's also probably pretty good for rain. Not the best rain jacket ever, but it will at least protect me if it's very rainy. And like you said, it packs up into such a small little bag. That's convenient, and I'll bring that when I'm going to be somewhere where I don't know about the weather also. Along those lines, though, another thing I've done is I have a Scotty vest hoodie that's got a million pockets in it, and that can be useful if you're flying low cost carriers and you want to be able to pack away, some of your heavier like battery pack and charger in something that's
Yeah.
not going to get weighed.
Right. So you put everything into your Scotty vest clothing, and then you get onto the airplane without having to pay extra for a carry-on.
Yeah, yeah, and I've done that
Yeah,
before. I mean, it's not my usual modus operandi, so to speak, but I have done it before in order to carry that stuff, and I'll legitimately put the heavier items in there.
yeah. Another thing that I've been doing for years now, and it works so well for me, is I keep a toiletry kit fully stocked at all times with everything I need. So that means like I don't have a toothbrush, for example, that I use at home and then take with me when I'm traveling. There's a separate toothbrush in my toiletry kit. There's a separate, like, I tend to grind my teeth at night, so I use a mouth guard at night. I have a separate one that's in my toiletry kit. So just everything that you might need. You know, do you ever need tweezers for some reason? There's a second one in there, and having that just always stocked. I mean, it makes such a huge difference in how stressful packing before a trip can be, because I don't have to think of it. I just think, is everything stocked up? Like, so I make sure that things that, that will run out are restocked in there. But it takes away most of the stress of worrying about, do I have everything I need? It's already there. Just make sure I have the toiletry kit. Boom.
Yeah, and I think that's a great idea. And I don't do as good of a job. I do have the same toiletry kit that I bring every time, and it does have toothbrush and toothpaste in there, but I probably could do better about just making sure it's restocked when I get back each time.
Yeah, I mean, that's the hard part, but it's not that hard to remember to check it before your trip as well, and
right.
just to check the few things that do run out.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great tip, and that's something that you can just pack away in a filing cabinet, or if you have a carry-on bag that you often bring, or suitcase, you just leave it in the suitcase when you pack the suitcase away, and you know where it is for next time. So I think that things like that help reduce the stress of packing. The things that you leave for every single trip.
Exactly. It makes such a huge difference. If all you have to worry about is which clothes to bring, and not have to worry about the toiletries, not have to worry about, like we talked before, about the electronics, because you have duplicates of all that stuff in your bag. One thing we forgot to mention, I carry, and I think you probably do too, is in your backpack, is a backup phone,
yes.
just in case your primary one dies, because phones are no longer like an optional thing to have when traveling, in my mind. I mean, I can't imagine what I would do without quick access to the internet, to Google Maps and apps like that. So I just find that so essential. And so having a backup there, doesn't have to have service, because you can either move your SIM card into it, or you can, buy a local SIM wherever you're at and get it running. But just in case, to have that there is great.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I always carry a backup phone, for all of those reasons. So it's just too useful of a tool. And it's not that you can't buy a phone anywhere, but I would rather have a phone I'm familiar with and I know will work at home than buy one somewhere overseas.
Yeah. And I always have, like, all my primary apps already installed on it, because
right.
even without a SIM card, you can get it on internet, and so you can have it all set up with your apps. Make sure you're able to log in everything.
And that's an important point, because some apps might not be available depending on where you are. So having them loaded before you've gone is a good idea.
Really good point. Yeah, the App Store doesn't work sort of universally based on where you are. Yeah,
right.
Great point.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think those are a whole bunch of great packing tips. Of course, the ultimate tip is if you can fold up in a suitcase like Carrie. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you can look up our travel hacks videos on YouTube, or life themed travel hacks, and she'll show you how to save 50% on airfare. But we're not going to, unfortunately, be able to pull that one off for this trip or for our other trips. So I think those are some good tips. If readers have more tips, please share your tips with us. I'd love to hear what your tips are. They'll be too late for me for this particular trip, or for us for this particular trip, but I'd love to hear what hacks and tips you have that could make our travel lives a little bit easier, because I've certainly picked things up from Greg and from readers along the way that have made my life a lot easier when it comes to travel. I'm sure you have more to teach us, so let us know. Share with others in the comments.
Absolutely, that would be great.
All right. I think that brings us to the end for this week. So we're going to skip over question of the week again, because I do have to finish packing up and get to the airport. So if you've enjoyed today's show, and I hope you have, you can go to frequentmiler.com/subscribe. Again, that's frequentmiler.com/subscribe. Follow us on social media. I'm not kidding. If you're not on Instagram yet, you should be. get to our Instagram story right now because we are doing some wild things. I can almost guarantee that we'll have some interesting stuff going on in that story as you're listening to this. So go check it out over there, wherever you're listening to the show or watching it. Please leave us some feedback, enable notifications, subscribe, all that fun stuff. We appreciate it. And if you have questions or other general feedback, send that too.
Frequent miler at no, don't do that. Mailbag at frequentmiler.com.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for listening, everybody. See you next week. Bye.